So why should the agencies and their clients adopt the Shopware PaaS? It's a very important question. And to answer this question, to be honest with you, we need to start thinking about agencies as something that is not a monolith. We know there are different realities within an agency. And, high level, we can identify at least 3 personas in an agency: the engineering and technical team, the business team, and then the actual clients of an agency. And it's very important for each one of these personas to know exactly why we should be doing this, why it's a good idea to do it. Of course, as I just said, the majority of the session would be aimed at engineering team, development teams, but I will be going very briefly over the reasons why also business and clients should be using the Shopware PaaS. But before I do that, a very high-level introduction of the Shopware PaaS. We together, we're working together, Platform on Stage and Shopware PaaS, and we like to say that no one else does so much for you. So the way this PaaS position itself is a fairly high level, okay, still leaving you with a good degree of liberty on the things that you want to do. But we try to do as much as possible for the technical users, but also for the business users and everyone else, so that an agency in this case can actually focus on their main their main goal, which is working on the projects that they've been tasked with. Okay, you shouldn't have to bother with everything else that you see on this slide, because that should just work. That is what we have in mind when we continue to build this fantastic product. So I won't go through all the details of these, but this is just to give you an overview that, compared to a traditional PaaS, on the left-hand side column, on the right-hand side, you find a stack of stuff that we do on top of that, that we try to provide for you in the best manner possible, so that you can have peace of mind and carry on with your work. So one first reason why agencies should be using this is because it makes engineering sense. And with that, I'm just going to expand on what I just said. The animation here on the right hand is one of my favorite. It essentially boils down, what the PaaS, what the R PaaS is that we are trying to do all that it is now, these days considered standard suddenly I can hear feedback. Sorry, that's why I'm stopping in between my sentences. So as I was saying, we try to do everything that is today considered standard in a best practice development workflow. We try to do all that for you, or to provide you with the tools to do it right out of the box, so that you can essentially focus on inserting your code in there, right? So that is, of course, an oversimplification, but it tells you the basic idea of this. You do what you are supposed to do, what you're tasked with. What are you best at doing? And then we do everything else so that you have peace of mind. So you find things like built-in CI/CD. We have our flagship feature, which is environment cloning, whereby we can essentially clone everything that is on production: code, data, all the services, everything, and also the relationship between all these components in an architecture. Everything can be cloned within a matter of minutes on non-production environment, and you have peace of mind that you can work, break, develop, and test those environments without ever affecting production. And you also don't have to bother with trying to fiddle with the connections and relationship in order to make all those components work, because they will just work as they work on production. So again, back to this concept where you don't have to waste your time trying to manage things you're not supposed to manage. It will just work for you. And then, when all your work is done on non-production environment, when you merge a branch, because the whole idea, the basis of Platform.sh is everything is Git driven. So merging a branch is the equivalent of deploying those changes to the parent environment, which more often than not is the actual production environment. And then we provide a number of features on top of that. Most importantly, system monitoring, application monitoring, like Blackfire, for example, that you're going to see later in this session. We have backup in the form of snapshots. That's essentially the same technology that is behind the environment cloning. So we can take full state backups of all the code and data, and those kind of backups can be restored to either production or any other environment within your project very, very quickly. So that's one first reason, right? In the engineering section, it is also a container-based platform. Why is that important? It's not just because it's cool these days to have a container-based platform, but because it really provides a number of improvements and important features behind the scenes that perhaps most of the time they are not actually appreciated firsthand. But with a container-based platform, when you compare that with a bare metal or bare clouds, you have at least the following. It becomes really at least easier or more robust. Okay, so like rolling out improvements and updates behind the scenes, it becomes more flexible, more agile, so we can do that more often and more robustly for you. We have features like scaling, auto scaling, vertical, horizontal, depends then on different contracts, different features, different plans. Self-healing is easier and robust. Resource isolation, security and privacy, and then much more that we can see during this presentation. Another big important feature of the PaaS is that it uses declarative infrastructure as a service. Okay, so what that means is that the configuration of your infrastructure lives in a declarative file, like a YAML file, and that is stored in the same Git repo of your project. And there is a very nice, consequences because of that. So as first, you have high confidence in deployments and the infrastructure itself. And then there is an integrated development workflow. So your application changes and infrastructure changes, they go together. And the result of that is also that infrastructure changes can be backed up, deployed, and rolled back just along with your code. So when you're developing something that actually entails changes in the architecture, then you can make all those changes in a non-production environment. And so you will see new services appearing, you can make new connections. And when you've done with all that and actually develop the code that uses all these new components, when you go and merge those changes, then the entire new architecture is deployed to production, just as you would be deploying any other piece of code. And then we have another a host of other benefits like automated scanning and provisional environments, secret management, access control. You have no configuration drift, disaster recovery is made easier, auditing, metadata, and so on and so forth. There will be more about that during the actual how-to training. Security and privacy. I like to say that this is a beast on its own these days, right? Security and privacy has become a very important and large task for all organizations out there, from the biggest to the smallest, doesn't matter if you're an agency or a corporation or anything else, security and privacy is top priority for everyone, including your clients. And because it's so important, because it's so difficult, it often requires, a dedicated team to take care of all these things that you see on the slide that I'm not going to go through all of them one by one. But the important thing here to understand is this is extremely important stuff that nobody can afford to just, overlook these days. So what you really want is make sure that the platform that you're using underneath is taking care of all these things for you, both for, technical reasons and security reasons, right? You want to prevent breaches from a technical point of view, but also, probably more important than that, it's compliance with the law. We comply with laws in Europe, in other countries, and a number of other things. So we take care of that on a daily basis. Everything is always up to date behind the scenes. You don't have to worry about that. And that's a huge peace of mind, to be honest. Extensibility. So I will say, we said from the beginning that the Shopware PaaS is based on the platform engine, and that comes with a platform that its core is multi-application and polyglot. Now, this depends, again, on contracts, kind of plans and things that you have to do. But what it really means is that for more complex projects where, you might need to add other components alongside Shopware, you can do all of that in theory on a single platform. And, you can change the infrastructure, you can add more services, and as the size of these and the complexity of these grows, we grow with you, and we allow you to do all that very, very simply. And kind of a result of that is that we also we're very friendly with modern kind of projects and architectures where, we have decoupled or headless or Jamstack, these kind of new patterns that have emerged recently. We're very friendly with these, and we also provide a unique perspective on this, because what it means is you can still host all of these components on a single platform, but you still get the benefit of being able to clone an entire estate of applications. And so what it means is, yes, you have decoupled in terms of architecture and logically, maybe also physically in terms of repositories that you want to split, but you still get the whole benefit of cloning all of these and their relationships together in a non-production environment. And so you get the benefit of working on these fairly more complex projects with the same ease of development as you would do normally with a standard monolithic project. Another important thing is the ability. We have this name within platform.sh that we use. It's basically FleetOps is referring at the ability, the improved ability to manage a fleet, a large fleet. So that means a huge number of projects. That is the same whether you're a shopper-focused agency that are trying to manage tens or hundreds or even thousands of shopper projects. Doing everything on the Shopware PaaS will allow you to become more efficient in managing these huge number of projects. But because at the core there is a shared engine, what it means is that if you are not a shopper only agency, you are in the position of going one step further and being able to manage a fleet of websites and web applications across different technologies with the same, essentially with the same tool, because at the core there are shared features. Collaboration is another huge thing for the engineering team. So because we provide out of the box in the Shopware PaaS user and access control, isolated from production environments there to be used for different purposes. You can take one of these environments, hand it over to stakeholders, QAs, and so on and so forth, and that will make everyone happy as you continue with your work in engineering. The result of that is that you have an agile, lean workflow that leads to robust and stable software. And it does that faster and more easily for everyone. Like I said, let's have a quick look also why it makes sense for other personas, personas other than engineering. So it makes sense for the customer. The reason why it makes sense for the customer is probably because there is some overlap, right, with some of the things you already said. It's a sensible choice, this PaaS, for the customer perspective, because it provides a reliable and performant hosting. Okay, you want that for a customer. Security and privacy is taken care of, and it should be our job, our job as a Shopware, our job as a platform, our job as you guys in the agencies to make sure that the customer understands the top importance of security and privacy and why it's so important to have that, that kind of level of professionalism behind security and privacy built into the platform that you're using for the hosting and development. And of course, faster time to market. That's what clients want to hear. They're going to be on the market as soon as possible. And the product quality was just mentioned, that's also important for the customer. But we are going to say they also makes business sense. And I'm going to share just a couple of quotes from some documents. One is from the Forrester Total Economic Impact Study that platform.sh commissioned in 2022. The result, this is from the summary, and we have essentially the findings are about increased efficiency, reduced operating costs, faster iteration deployment, and the ability to manage a huge number of projects in the same place and more easily. What that translates to is what Abby Breckwell is saying here, the founder of an agency in Sydney, saying all of that translates in earning back billable hours instead of managing infrastructure, right? So you don't have to deal with a number of annoyances anymore that are essentially outside of the responsibility, the scope of the work of an agency. You can earn back money. That's essentially what this boils down to. That is true for you as a business, for you as your customers, and so on and so forth. Last but not least, this is a very hot topic these days. It's going to become more so, pun not intended, and it makes sense for the environment. So a number of organizations, institutions, companies are going to be required to meet some environmental requirements in the future, and we are working towards that goal with our partners, with our customers, and so on and so forth. We started doing that long ago, we can pride ourselves in having a high density container hosting solution. What that means is that with the same resources, we can power more websites and applications out there. And so that results, of course, in less energy used. And so a gentler impact on the environment. But we are also now working more heavily towards that goal together with everyone involved, so the partners, the clients, and we also recently hired, I think we're the first that we hired a chief environmental officer. So we are very, very focused on these, and we are trying to have a shared goal with everyone. And we go by an acronym, right? So we use another mode, as we say. So we measure the carbon footprint. We optimize at all levels. So on our side, on the shopper side, with the partners like Shopware, and on the application side. Okay, so it also goes down to the final development team to make sure with everyone else that everything is optimized to reduce the impact. And then we deploy to greener data centers, so that this is already a reality with our platform. And if you don't have geographical constraints in terms of where you want to deploy your applications, right now we already have available for you data centers that are greener than others. And we educate, and we do that with humility. We essentially aim at sharing our learning so that we can learn from each other, and we can all be aiming at the same goal, which is try to be greener for everyone else. I think that is my last slide, which means now I'm going to pass the ball to my colleague, Jonas. Jonas, over to you. Thanks, guys, for listening.
Thank you so much, Vinny, for so much insight. So before we dive into the details and how you can achieve, you heard a lot about the why. I wanted to take a couple of minutes to talk about the shared responsibilities, because obviously we are all together in this, in such projects. We work seamlessly, try to work seamlessly together between Platform as Shopware, but also you as the agencies and obviously the clients involved. So there's one part, obviously, that we will be trying to do, and the other one is where you come in with your expertise as well. Taking a first look into our part, next slide, please, where so what we want to do from the Shopware and Platform as side is we want to get you started on a good basis. We want to enable you to know how to do everything, and then later on you decide still what exactly are you implementing, obviously. That means that here's a couple of examples of things that we as the Shopware PaaS team will provide. So obviously we will give you trainings like today, but also if you go into a project with us later on, there will be a specific training to your broader team, even to master all the tooling, to get an idea on how infrastructure is managed from our side. And obviously that's the portion, as you've heard from Vinny, that we do in the automated and abstract way. We will help you with everything that relates to the infrastructure. So that means obviously if we do load tests together, something that you would run, we would help you analyze the metrics and make sure you have the best configuration, make sure you have the best capable infrastructure for your use case. Obviously, it means that we heavily do monitoring, so making sure your site is available at all times. We heard a lot about compliance. This is something that is always ongoing. Excuse me. It's always ongoing because security is not a one-time thing. There needs to be updates deployed all the time. And we also have 24 hours security incident teams that are really specialists. Overall, you will get a template, and we will hear about this later from Rafael even more so, that is already applying the best practices, but obviously it's also for you to use that as a basis to make changes according to your use cases. Which brings me to the next slide, which is more about what your responsibilities are. So obviously the application and everything that you do in coding is still on you, basically. Doesn't make any sense otherwise, right? So we will see a lot of tooling. We will also heard a lot of tooling already. We will later see how you can optimize your application, get data to make better decisions. But in the end, it's your decisions for sure, and it's your time that you need to spend to optimize the application, for example, for faster performance. Again, the template is already optimized to some degree, but there's third-party code from plugins and so on that needs to be taken into consideration when it comes, for example, to CDN performance and so on and so on. So anything that is basically related to the application, including the application security issues, or applying a major shopware update is still within your responsibility, because you know best when to apply and what to do with your projects, and you know your customers' requirements, obviously.